Hey guys, welcome back to another foundation road test. If you saw my last video, you know I got a new camera recently, which I really love. However, the touchscreen on it started malfunctioning about an hour into using it. So I've sent it off to get a replacement and I'm waiting on the replacement. So I'm just back to normal right now until I get my new camera back. This was an unplanned foundation road test. I had heard just a minimal amount of buzz about this foundation, but I was walking through Rite Aid last week. I saw it. They had my shade, which is very rare. So I picked it up and thought I needed to check it out and give you guys a report on it. And by the time this is loaded, there may be more reviews up. I'm not sure, but it's the COVERGIRL Vitalist Healthy Elixir Foundation. And I'm assuming it's Vitalist. It may be Vitalist. I don't think anybody really knows how to pronounce this yet, but that's what I'm looking at. I'm in the shade 725 Buff Beige. In case you guys are wondering, I do put my foundation matches in the description box below. At some point, I may have to just transfer all that over to my blog because the description box only holds so much and it's getting a little long at this point. So there are 14 shades in this foundation and it seems to be retailing anywhere from $11 to $14 depending on where you get it. And I'm sure you can find it on sale. It's just going to depend on where you shop and what kind of promotions they have going on at the time. And as usual, I'm going to read the claims so we can see what this is supposed to do for us. So it says, discover healthy looking skin. Bottled new Vitalist Healthy Elixir Foundation is infused with vitamins E, B3, B5, plus SPF 20 for correction, protection, and perfection all in one. This full coverage foundation makes skin glow with a healthy look from the inside out. It also says that it has a special antioxidant and vitamin complex. It's a hydrating formula for a beautiful buildable coverage that glides on smoothly for a flawless look. It's supposed to make your skin look healthy all day, give your skin a luminous glow, and it's oil-free and minimizes the appearance of oily shine and has a lightweight formula. The claims on this foundation are appealing to me as someone who is over 40 and still has combination oily skin. I do get oily in my T-zone, but the perimeters of my face are normal and can get a little bit dry sometimes. So when a foundation claims to make you look healthy and hydrated yet still keep the oil in check, that's a good thing. So we'll see how this fares on that end. And whether or not you've seen my foundation reviews before, what I typically do is wear them over the course of several days, sometimes a little bit longer than others. And I try them out with different application methods, with and without primers, just to give all of you an idea of how they wear better and apply better over the course of those days for my particular skin. So hopefully it'll help give you an idea of whether you may or may not like the particular foundation. So this intro is actually being filmed on the same day I am giving you my summary at the end. I did an intro on the same day as the application. Something happened with my sound, so I'm redoing it. But I used my Hourglass Veil Primer and I topped everything with my CoverFX Matte Translucent Loose Powder, just so you guys know what I used on that first application day. And we can get to that and I will see you guys at the end. I typically don't do voiceovers for foundation road tests, but I felt like it fit for this one. I don't know why. So you can see it's a very thick texture. It's not even dripping down my hand at all. So I'm anxious to see how this actually applies to the skin. I'm only going to take a little bit on my beauty blender and start to dab it on my face section by section. This is typically how I do most of my foundation road tests. I feel like I have a lot more control over how much I apply. I can apply thin layers versus getting way too much at once if I were to dot it all over my face, at least on the first few applications. I am just going in on one side of my face and applying it to see how it covers redness on one side versus the other, and it seems to be doing a pretty good job. It spread on the skin nicely and blended in, and now I'm just seeing if I can get a second layer before it's really set into the skin to see if it gives more coverage. And it does layer a little bit, but it's really not full coverage. So I'm doing the second side with a brush to see what kind of coverage it gives and to see if it blends in very smoothly. I'm having a little bit of a hard time here. It seems to be a little bit streaky and patchy with the brush and is just emphasizing some skin texture that I don't really like. I'm working with it, but it's not working out really well. You can see I am inspecting it very closely. So I am actually going to take my beauty blender and go in and smooth this out and press it into the skin and see if I can remedy the situation. It does seem to be making it a little bit better. So it seems like a beauty blender is going to be the way to go with this foundation from here on out. It was a little bit thicker than I expected, but I do like the way it applied to the skin with a beauty blender. It didn't apply horribly with the brush. I just don't like the way the finish was. It did look a little powdery and dry up here and a little bit around here, around the cheek area where I kind of look dry sometimes. So you saw I had to smooth that out with my beauty blender. It's fine. I just preferred it with the beauty blender for sure. I wouldn't call it full coverage. I definitely had to add concealer to my sunspots, even though it did even out redness nicely. And I didn't need a ton of concealer, but I did still have to conceal, which that's fine. I would say based on today at least, it's more of a medium buildable coverage, not quite full. I'm probably not going to do a midday check-in today because I applied this pretty late since it was a completely impromptu foundation road test. So I will check in at the end of the day and let you know how it's gone today. So it's getting ready to wash my face and I completely forgot I needed to check in at the end of the day. It's been 9 hours and it's still held up well, and I haven't touched up, not one time, and I really don't feel overly shiny at all. Don't pay attention to the under eye concealer because I'm trying out two and they're very drying. But everything else looks pretty good, pretty natural. 9 hours, no touch-ups. So today I had no primer on this side and my Guerlain Meteorites primer on this side, and it seemed to wear pretty well on both sides. My makeup has stayed on all day. It's been about 10 hours and it looks pretty good. I don't notice any tremendous oxidizing going on over here, so maybe it has to do with skincare. I am using that Boscia oil-free mattifying moisturizer. I'll put a link below, but I don't know, I'm liking it so far. Okay, I just realized I wasn't done. I forgot to say that I did touch up just one time today. I just lightly blotted with a tissue and touched up very lightly only in the T-zone with translucent powder. And that's really all I've done, and there's been just minimal shine. I really don't feel like anything is settling into my pores. I didn't put anything pore filling, so you do see my pores just like you would with my skin, but I'll get a little closer. But for 10 hours, I would say it's looking pretty decent, and I'll update later or summarize. I'm not sure where I am at this point. Okay, so we are at the end of the foundation road test, and the first thing I'm going to say is that I hate this lid. It is a very cheap plasticky lid. It's kind of like that throwaway packaging you got on toys or on Christmas ornaments to throw away. I don't know why they chose this. We have this very sturdy glass bottle that actually looks pretty nice with a pump, and then we have this cheap lid. I don't quite get this, and it doesn't even stay on very well, so it's not like you're going to be able to travel with this. Now the pump does lock, which is a nice feature because not many pumps lock. Maybe you are supposed to throw this away and just use it like this. I don't know. I don't like that. So my lighting's getting a little bit dim outside. I'm going to try and power through here and still have some light and finish this somewhat quickly. I love the finish this gives, and I love the way it feels on my skin. It doesn't feel heavy. It feels nice and lightweight, which is what you want from a foundation. It's what I want from a foundation. It's a demi-matte finish on my skin, which I love, and when I got shiny during the day, I never felt oily or greasy. The most I've had to touch up, I would say 1 to 3 times, usually just 2, and those are on my 10 to 12 hour days. That's not a lot, and by touching up, I mean blotting with a blotting sheet or a tissue and touching up with translucent powder, and sometimes I didn't even bother touching up with powder at all because I just didn't feel like I needed to. It does give a natural, healthy finish. In photos, I felt like it looked nice without a flash. With a flash, I don't think it was too horrible for something that has SPF 20 in it at all. I think it could have looked a lot worse. So it's definitely more of a medium coverage. It layers well if you layer it immediately, but it still doesn't build to a full coverage. So I think I showed that in the application where I applied a thin layer, assessed, and then went right in where I needed more coverage. And that's the way I would recommend doing it. I tried waiting a little bit for it to set and then going in, and I did get a fuller coverage that way, but what I found was that it looked not as natural and not as healthy, and that the makeup that I put on over it just looked a little heavier that day, and I just didn't like it as much. So I feel like for this foundation to be how it's supposed to be, natural, healthy, demi-matte finish, lightweight, not cakey, you need to have it be that medium coverage and slightly buildable in certain areas. So yes, you will have to use concealer with this. It's not totally full coverage. That's okay with me. I didn't need a ton of concealer. I loved the finish enough to where I was okay with using it that way. As long as I knew I was not going to get full coverage out of it, this was good for me. So I've heard some people say that this oxidizes. I did not find that to be the case as long as I wore it with my mattifying moisturizer that I've been using. It's the Boscia Green Tea Oil-Free Moisturizer. If I wore that with it alone, I didn't have oxidation, or if I wore it with just a regular moisturizer and a long wearing primer or a mattifying primer, I didn't have oxidation. I did have it otherwise if I wore it alone, or if I wore it with just a regular primer over a regular moisturizer. I did have oxidation. So you could have oxidation. It just is going to depend on what you put under it, and your mileage may vary with that. It may take some experimenting. So there is some validation to that. I really did not like this with a mattifying primer. I felt like it kind of dragged and stuck. Even with a beauty blender, that was my favorite way to apply it, was with a beauty blender. I tried it with my fingers, I tried it with a brush. It just applied so much more beautifully no matter what primer I was using. But when I used a mattifying primer, it just took a lot more effort to not look splotchy or patchy. So I preferred it with just my mattifying moisturizer, or with a regular moisturizer and just a long wearing primer like my Guerlain Meteorites. And you may have your own primers that you really like to use, but those were the two types that I really preferred to wear it with, and how I felt like it looked the most beautiful. For me, I like this a lot more than I thought I was going to. I feel like my makeup has lasted all day. Even when I've gotten to the end of my day, I've had this on for 11 hours now, and I feel like my makeup is looking really good still. You know, I may be getting a little bit shiny through my T-zone, but it's nothing out of control, and it just still looks good. So I'll get a little close. I know I have a light in front of me to compensate for the lack of light everywhere else. Otherwise, I would just be sitting here in a shadow. I'm going to try to go to a window in a second and show you what this looks like in actual lighting before the sun goes down. This is the side where I only used my moisturizer this morning, my Boscia moisturizer, and this is the side where I use my moisturizer and my Guerlain Meteorites primer. And I feel like it's lasted all day. Like I said, 11 hours. I think I'm going on more than 11 hours now, and it looks fresh and nice. It doesn't look cakey. It looks good for, you know, medium coverage, natural, healthy foundation. Okay, so I always feel like my bathroom has the worst lighting ever, and it's probably echoing, but I wanted you to see the foundation and how it's holding up, and I'm sure this camera work is really wiggly, but this is it, and I feel like it looks pretty good. I have to say, I like this foundation more than I thought I was going to like it, but I think that if you are someone who is looking for a medium natural finish SPF foundation, this could be worth a shot, but you do need to be willing to try out some things under it because of that oxidation factor. But I think if you're willing to do that, it might be one worth checking out. I was actually kind of surprised by it. I wasn't expecting to like it at all. I kind of thought it might make me a grease ball or break me out, and it didn't. So that is this foundation road test, and it was actually a success, and I'm surprised. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and will stick around for my next video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up, and if you're not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching, and if you're not following me on my social media, I'll put that on the screen and in the description box. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.